The clay tablet is still soft. In a room above the harbor of Ugarit, a rich trading city on the coast of what is now Syria, a scribe presses wet letters into a message that, the evidence suggests, was never sent. Outside the port is burning. His words are close to these. The enemy's ships are here. They have burned our towns. They have done evil in our land. It is near the year 1200 before Christ. His world is ending, and he does not yet know how completely. For 3 centuries, the kingdoms of the Eastern Mediterranean had traded gold and grain and metal across a single connected world. Then, inside the span of one human lifetime, almost every one of them collapsed. Cities burned. Writing was forgotten. Entire peoples vanished from the record. What actually happened in that one generation? And why did they all fall together? The answer unsettles something we still believe about how safe a connected world really is. Picture the year 1300 before Christ. From the Nile to the coast of Greece, a small number of superpowers share one economy. Egypt ruled from Thebes. The Hittite Empire, governed from Hattusa, high on the Anatolian plateau. The Mycenaean Greeks, in their stone citadels at Mycenae and Pylos. Babylon, Assyria, the island of Cyprus, which the Egyptians called Alashia, feeding the whole system with copper. These kings write to one another as brothers. They trade daughters in marriage, physicians, sculptors, and shiploads of tin. The rare metal that mixed with copper becomes bronze and becomes an army. A single wreck found off the coast of Turkey at Uluburun was carrying 10 tons of copper and 1 ton of tin, together with goods from at least 7 different cultures: Baltic amber, African ivory, Egyptian gold, glass the color of the sea. On the docks of a port like this, you would smell cedar resin and salt and the sharp tang of hot metal. You would hear a dozen languages spoken at once. A merchant on Cyprus could send a letter to a court beside the Nile and expect an answer, pressed in wet clay before the season turned. This is the first truly global world, and what makes it strong is also what will kill it. Begin in the north. In the Hittite capital of Hattusa, the storerooms stand empty. For years the harvests have failed. Hittite letters beg foreign kings for grain, one of them using words that translate roughly as, "It is a matter of life and death." Around the year 1200 before Christ, the city that had ruled an empire for more than 400 years is emptied and then burned. Archaeologists once assumed invaders destroyed it. The evidence now suggests the people left first, carrying their gods and their most sacred objects with them, and that the fire came to a capital, already abandoned. Imagine the last of them on the road out, dust on the tongue. The great walls behind them, holding nothing but wind. The stone lions on the gates watched no one leave. For an empire that had traded as an equal with Egypt, there was no battle, no final stand. There was only a slow, quiet emptying. Cross the sea, west, to the Greek mainland. In the palace of Pylos, a scribe records something anxious in the linear B script. Watchers are being posted along the coast. Rowers are being counted. Bronze is being collected from the sanctuaries. Even the offerings meant for the gods are gathered up for weapons. Then the tablets stop. The palace burns so fiercely that the clay records, meant to last a single season, are accidentally baked hard and preserved for more than 3,000 years. We can still read the final inventories of a kingdom that never wrote again. And above these cities, the sky itself may have turned. Pollen buried in the mud of ancient lakes, studied by the researcher David Kanievsky and others, records a long, punishing drought settling over the region at exactly this moment. Decades of rain that did not come. Rivers thinned, fields cracked. The grain ships that had held the whole world together grew fewer and then stopped. And then there are the ships. In the 8th year of the pharaoh Rameses III, a year we now place near 1177 before Christ. Egyptian scribes carve a warning into the walls of a temple at Medinet Habu. A coalition of peoples, they write, came out of the sea and from the islands, and no land could stand before them. They name the fallen Hatti, Carchemish, Cyprus. One great kingdom after another, already gone. The Egyptians called these attackers, among other names, the Peliset, the Shurdan, the Shekelesh. History would come to call them, simply, the Sea Peoples. On the temple wall, the carving shows it happening. Crowded ships, oars and spears, men in feathered headdresses falling into the reeds. Egypt met them in the Nile Delta, and, alone among the great powers, survived. But it was never the same. Within a lifetime, it lost its empire, its distant trade, and most of its wealth. The great age of pyramids and pharaohs was quietly over. Here is the pattern it took historians decades to see. These kingdoms did not fall one by one, conquered in a tidy sequence. They fell almost together, within about 50 years of one another. And they fell together because they were bound together. Their wealth rested on a web of long-distance trade. Cypriot copper, tin from far to the east, Egyptian grain, Mycenaean oil. Cut enough of those threads, with drought, with famine, with piracy, with earthquakes striking the same few decades, and every kingdom that had grown rich on the web begins to starve at once. This is the thing to remember. Call it the web of kings. What made them powerful was the very thing that made them fragile. For a long time, scholars hunted for one cause, one invasion, one drought, one villain, the Sea Peoples. But the Sea Peoples were probably not a single army. Many of them were likely refugees, farmers, fishermen, whole families fleeing their own collapsing homelands, moving by boat because the land behind them could no longer feed them. The invaders were, in part, the victims. What the historian Eric Klein argues is that there was no single cause at all. There was drought and famine and earthquakes and rebellion and the failure of trade, and each disaster deepened the others. A system under that much strain does not bend. It shatters. When one kingdom fell, it stopped buying, stopped shipping, stopped feeding the next. And so the collapse traveled along the very roads that had carried the wealth from city to city, like a current running through water. The most connected world of its age was, for that exact reason, the most fragile. We tell ourselves we are different. We are more connected, more advanced, better informed. The people of Ugarit believe the same. Every time you eat food grown on another continent, or hold a device built from minerals mined in a dozen countries, you are living inside a web of kings, far larger than anything the Bronze Age could imagine, and held together by the same invisible threads of trade and the same quiet certainty that they will always hold. They did not learn how thin their web was until it tore. Perhaps neither will we. The scribe of Ugarit finished his tablet. We do not know whether he ever looked up from it. What we know is that his message was found, more than 3,000 years later, in the ashes of the city, baked solid by the same fire that ended his world. He was warning a distant king that the end had come. He did not understand that he was already inside it. Every connected world believes it is too vast to fall. Theirs was simply the first to prove otherwise.